Has President Trump broken the Democrat Party? Are they dealing with an internal civil war, or are they just tripping over themselves to figure out a path forward? To help me understand this and go through some of the biggest news stories, I have Amanda Head. Amanda, thank you so much for joining me.
Stephen, I'm delighted to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
So let me give some background to my audience. Amanda is the host of Furthermore with Amanda Head. This is a podcast where you can get really incredible information. She's also a co-host on Just the News, No Noise. She sits with John Solomon, and she's also a White House correspondent, getting in, asking questions, understanding what's going on in Washington, D.C. The first topic I wanted to discuss with you is Democrats continue to visit, travel for, advocate for MS-13 gang members, some of which have killed people in the very towns that they're needing to be reelected. What are your thoughts on them bending over backwards for gang members that should be removed from the country versus just taking care of their own voter base?
Yeah, Stephen, it's pretty incredible. And as a journalist, I look at the way that each of the parties maneuver. And, I think most people understand that whether you're talking about a Republican or a Democrat, oftentimes they are more swayed in their policy support by focus groups and polling and things like that. There is this idealistic view that people go into Congress because of their own personal convictions, and that's usually the case. But the unfortunate nature of Congress is that to get reelected, you have to pay attention to the way that the wind is blowing, and as a result, they all have incredibly pruny fingers from licking their fingers and testing the wind directions a lot. What is incredible to me is the fact that this most recent poll from CNN showed that 56% of Americans, and look, it's CNN. This is not Rasmussen or Tony Fabrizio or one of these conservative pollsters, which the left likes to look down their nose at. Which, by the way, they are consistently more accurate than the leftist pollsters. But you look at a CNN poll that you have to believe that their sample is going to be more Democrat than Republican, and 56% of those support deporting all 11 million illegal immigrants. Now, I happen to think that that number is much higher than 11 million, but the fact remains that they are not discriminating between MS-13 violent criminals, Tren de Aragua, rapists, murderers, whatever the case may be, and people who simply just broke the law coming into this country. And, I would proffer the notion that for those who like to put these people in baskets, they say, well, we don't know, they commit violent crimes at a lower percentage than the American population. I don't care. As far as I'm concerned, 100% of them have committed crimes. It may not be violent crimes, but they stole residency in this country. And to me, that's a crime. And according to the law, that is also a crime. So you look at the way that Democrats are maneuvering, and this goes way back because there are Gallup polls from last year leading into the election showing that close to 80% of Americans support building a wall, finishing the wall, shutting down immigration, reforming the entire system, and a complete overhaul to immigration. So, Stephen, to me, I can only imagine that there is a cottage industry within the travel agency industry that wants to specialize in flights for Congress and accommodations down to El Salvador. The unfortunate thing is that it is not a private receipt that is handed off to that member of Congress. It is paid by, the tab is paid by the American people. I can't for the life of me understand why they are siding with MS-13 gang members like Abrego Garcia. I can't imagine that their supporters, that their voters are by and large supportive of this. Of course, you're always going to have this far leftist faction, and we can talk about that a little later, the younger demographic of Democrats. But for most Americans, if you're center left and you're a lifelong Democrat, you're one of these people who, supported someone like Bill Clinton, who did a whole swath of deportations during his presidency, you have to look at the policies of someone like Chris Van Hollen and the hypocrisy of him going down to El Salvador, spending time with this guy with margaritas in front of them that supposedly were planted by the government of El Salvador. Who knows? I think that it's not going to pull well for them. I certainly hope that they pull back on. Actually, I don't know. Maybe they don't pull back on it, and maybe it helps Republicans keep the majority in the midterms.
Yeah, maybe. That's interesting. You brought up maybe they're listening to these like focus groups that they pay for versus the general public. I remember covering on my channel, maybe you remember this, but Biden did this whole, it was like a $5 million focus group. And the word that they picked up was dark MAGA.
Right.
Like that was the most insulting thing that they could come up with for Donald Trump and those that listened to Donald Trump was dark MAGA. Well, dark MAGA embraced that wholeheartedly. Next thing you know, Make America Great hats with black and silver thread are coming out. Same thing, Kamala Harris. They spent millions and millions of dollars. And the thing that came out of these expensive focus groups was just don't be Donald Trump.
Yep.
Right? When in reality, people wanted to hear from her. They wanted to know her thoughts. How are you going to make my life more affordable? How are you going to keep me safe? And now they lose. And what do? They lean into killers, rapists, gang members, illegal immigrants costing the American people billions and billions of dollars. I just feel like, have they lost their way completely?
Yeah, but Stephen, I think that there's a theme here, which is that when you have two binary sides, and you can call it good versus evil, right versus wrong, successful versus unsuccessful, whatever the case may be, when the wrong, the evil, the unsuccessful side slings an insult at the other side, that good, that righteous, that successful side is able to turn it into something that works for them. And we saw this with Donald Trump the first time around with deplorable. We saw it this time around with dark MAGA. We saw it, in biblical times with the term Christian. We saw it during the Revolution with the term Yankee Doodle Dandy. They take that and they run with it. And when your party is built on a policy of just opposing one man, then you're put in a lot of really uncomfortable positions, especially when that one man is someone who is willing to take the best policies, even if they typically were something espoused by the other party. He is willing to adopt those policies if they are common sense, bring them into his own platform. So he's effectively stealing these policies from the Democrats, and I don't mean that in an unfavorable way, but he's taking the best of the best. He's taking things from Democrats that they used to support, that are classic Democrat, old dog, blue Democrat, lowercase d, sometimes independent policies, and he's taking those and running with them. So now Democrats are finding themselves on a really, really difficult and uncomfortable side of trans rights, on illegal immigration, on taxes, on foreign policy. And it kind of sucks for them because they have only supported "we hate Donald Trump." So Donald Trump could literally put out the purest, cleanest, most popular policy out there, and they would have to put themselves on the other side.
Yeah. One thing that I read and heard a lot during the 2024 election is the Democrat Party is no longer the party of JFK.
Yeah.
Well, just based on stuff that you've said this morning, I don't even know that they're the party of Bill Clinton anymore.
No.
Bill Clinton, other than, being a womanizer and ruining Monica Lewinsky's life, he had some pretty good policies. He cleaned up the government. He was the first president in a long time to run a deficit. So I feel like you're right. Trump has cherry picked what's the best of Ronald Reagan, what was the best of Bill Clinton, the best of JFK, and brought those forward. And the American people said, wow, this is common sense. I like this. So their policies ended up being better than some of these fringe policies. Would you say that's right? It's not even the party of Bill Clinton anymore?
Yeah, and there's not a policy that comes to mind of Barack Obama's that Donald Trump has commandeered, but this isn't even the Democrat Party of Barack Obama anymore. You look at speeches of him, vintage stuff from the beginning of his presidency, also when he served as senator, and you look at his policies, especially on immigration, and it's so much closer to what Donald Trump stands for now than what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris stand for. It's, I have oftentimes said that I think that Donald Trump should take some speeches from people like Barack Obama and give the speech. And of course, the left would figure out that he was plagiarizing, but then they would be forced to out it to the American people that Donald Trump is just saying the words of someone like Barack Obama. And On that note, I was thinking about this last night with respect to Joe Biden, and I'm sure you saw his speech last week in Chicago speaking on Social Security. The guy, I mean, they're practically wheeling him out there like it's weekend at Bernie's. I don't know why they are continuing to put him out there, because I don't think it is helpful to the Democrat Party. But considering what we now know, what a lot of journalists and Democrats are admitting to regarding his cognition during especially the last 2 years of his presidency, I almost want to have somebody, some enterprising journalist, sit Joe Biden down and say, well, what do you think about this executive order that you signed? He's not going to know if he signed it or not. I don't think he will remember, but throw him some of the executive orders that Donald Trump has signed and see what he has to say about it. I think it would be an interesting experiment. But all that to say, Stephen, I think it just boils down to the fact that Democrats, it's the Reagan thing all over again, that I didn't leave the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party left me. And I spoke to so many people. I'm sure the same thing with you, and I'm sure the same thing with so many of your listeners. How many people I spoke to. There's one who comes to mind, a neighbor of ours who, leading up to the election, I didn't know exactly where she stood. I kind of had a hunch that she was a Democrat. She works on the legal side of things and went to school here in Los Angeles. So I kind of had an idea that she was a Democrat. And she didn't tell me this until after the election, but she said, I voted Democrat my whole life. My whole family always has, but my 15-year-old daughter is a junior Olympian. And I'm just not okay with supporting candidates who would put a man in the locker room with my junior Olympian daughter. So she voted for Donald Trump. And I know that there are tens of thousands of other people like that, probably people who your audience knows. And it's because they are in that camp that they look at the party that used to represent them, and it's completely unrecognizable.
Yeah. Speaking of unrecognizable, the senator that went down to El Salvador, Senator Chris Von Hollen, in 2017, he was actually giving Donald Trump a hard time for not getting MS-13 gang members out of our country.
Yeah.
Like, why are you tearing families apart? Why aren't you getting these gang members out? And now, like you say, he's down sipping on margaritas or daiquiris or whatever it was with this Abrigo Garcia guy. It's just it's crazy to me. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I love it when we have that type of example with the same person saying the exact same thing.
I know it's like what's the main thing that they put over on Twitter? Like, this didn't age very well, right?
Yeah.
Like, that did not age
Aged
well,
like milk.
especially specifically calling out
Exactly.
MS-13. Like, wow, that is some spoiled milk right there.
Yep.
One thing I wanted to ask you've got David Hogg. He's the vice chair of the Democrat National Convention. He went on Jen Psaki's news show, if you can call it a news show, and talked about how he wants to primary and remove all older incumbent Democrat candidates. He wants to replace them with the new generation, the smarter generation, the better generation. Are we going to see AOC and Jasmine Crockett and new faces take over for Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, Nancy Pelosi? Your thoughts on this replacement theory?
Yeah, the smarter generation, the generation who can't figure out if they're male or female, the generation who can't pay off their student loans because they're that poor with finances. Okay. You know what? They stepped in it. I don't feel even the slightest bit bad for what they are now dealing with David Hogg. They are experiencing internal civil war. And here's the unfortunate thing for them. The youngest generation, liberals within that generation, are going further left. But that generation as a whole is becoming more conservative because they are looking at home prices, at the American dream. They look at that graph of home prices versus a one income household, and they're starting to see the trajectory of how, if you want to own a home, if you even want to have a middle class lifestyle, it's going to require a two-parent household or a two-income household. They are looking at issues like this and they are thinking to themselves, this doesn't benefit me at all. So logically, and there's also a spiritual aspect to this too, Stephen, because I'm a Christian, I'm a believer, and you hear statistics like the fact that Bible sales spiked last year and the previous year, and you look at this generation moving more and more in the pro-life direction. And it gives me hope for the conservative side of things. For Democrats, I don't feel even the slightest bit bad, because you allow someone like David Hogg, someone who has no experience other than just popping off at the mouth, to be co-chair of the Democrat, or vice chair of the Democrat Party. I'm all for them bringing in and elevating people like Jasmine Crockett. I feel the same way about Jasmine Crockett as I do AOC. And John Kennedy described that as AOC being the reason why directions are on the back of shampoo bottles. I feel the same way about Jasmine Crockett. The more that she starts talking, the more that she starts railing and click-clacking her nails and, moving furniture with the wake of her eyelashes. Keep talking, girl, because these are the types of things that anyone who is basically 28 or older is going to look at what you're saying and think this girl is absolutely wacko. It is going to cause increasing problems, Stephen. This is not just something that's ephemeral, because they are having a very hard time reeling in this youngest generation of liberals and moderating them. It is not happening because the youngest generation of liberals, much like the conservatives of that generation, have grown embittered towards anyone who is basically a millennial or older, especially boomers. And I think that the straw that broke the camel's back for David Hogg and a lot of these youngest liberals was Chuck Schumer making a deal on the CR with John Thune. I think that they saw that as a betrayal to their youngest voters. And maybe it was, but I don't really care, because it's not going to bode well for Democrats, and they're going to continue losing if they keep holding these policies.
Yeah, I agree. I'm excited to share with you guys an incredible scientific breakthrough to support our long-term health and wellness. C15 is the first essential fatty acid to be discovered in 90 years. And get this, studies have confirmed that it has 3 times better, broader, and safer application than omega-3 fatty acids. Now, Fatty 15 co-founder Dr. Stephanie Venn Watson discovered C15 while working with the U.S. Navy to continually improve the health and welfare of aging dolphins, of all things, right? Now, C15 works in multiple ways. It repairs age-related damage to cells, protects from future breakdown, boosts mitochondrial energy output. You're going to have more energy, healthier cells. It activates pathways in the body that help regulate sleep, mood, and naturally repair mechanisms that support overall health. This functionality leads to a myriad of exciting benefits now and as we get older, namely improved metabolic, liver, and heart health, smoother functioning joints, deeper sleep, healthier hair, skin, and nails. You guys, this is so important. As you age, almost every doctor has told me to start taking fish oil pills in order to get the omega-3 in me, right? But now, Fatty 15, through the Navy and medicine, they discovered something that is 3 times more powerful. Fatty 15 is on a mission to replenish your C15 levels and restore long-term health. You can get an additional 15% off their 90-day subscription starter kit by going to fatty15.com/Gardner and use code Gardner to get that discount. It's awesome. You guys are going to absolutely love it. Speaking of continuing to lose, Bill Maher, the comedian, he's got his HBO news show. He has been really coming out hard against the Democrat Party, saying, if you guys continue to trans children, try to usurp the power and authority of parenthood, just keep making these stupid fringe policies the center of your platform, you will continue to lose.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you have Donald Trump coming forward, protecting children, protecting girls, protecting the border, protecting seniors, protecting Social Security, protection.
Yeah.
I mean, this is why he won. But what are your thoughts on Bill Maher saying you're going to continue to lose if you keep leaning into stupidity?
Yeah, I actually just this morning resent Bill Maher's monologue from a few years ago. I encourage everyone to go out and watch it. It's available on YouTube. It's between 9 and 10 minutes, and every second of it is worth your time because, Bill Maher, I mean, he's a complete wacko on economy and taxes and a lot of foreign policy. But when it comes to two things, terrorism and trans stuff, he pretty much lines up with Donald Trump. And on the trans thing, he did this 10-minute monologue a few years ago, and he was talking about the ludicrousness of the whole trans and kids thing. And he started it off, or at some point he said, this is something that is becoming such an issue, and we're not even allowed to ask questions about it. If your kid comes to you and says that he identifies as a pirate, are you going to give him a peg leg and cut out his eye? And my home base is here in Los Angeles. And he was making the comparison between what you see in places like Los Angeles. Look at Megan Fox, perfect example. 3 out of 3 of her kids are transgender or gender questioning or somewhere on the spectrum between male and female, or maybe even on this, but not even on the spectrum. I don't know. I don't even know what she describes it as. But he said something like, you go to a white middle or upper class dinner party in Los Angeles, and practically every single one of those parents is going to have a kid who is not male or female. They are gay, they are bi, they are trans, they are something like that. And you go to Ohio and it's not that it just isn't the case. So either Los Angeles is breeding it or Ohio is banning it. Maybe it's somewhere in between, but I'm quite positive that the Democrat Party is breeding this. It has become a trendy box to check off. And I've had this theory about this, especially with well-to-do white parents here in Los Angeles and probably other liberal cities and municipalities across the country. If you are middle or upper class white, you can't claim any type of racial disparity. You can't claim any type of income disparity. You probably live in a nice neighborhood. You send your kids to good schools. So the only way that you as a parent can check off a box is if you force your kid into one of those boxes. And I'm not accusing these people of child abuse, but I certainly think that if you are leading your child down that road, then it is child abuse. And I don't know if it's a popularity contest or what, but when you have these types of policies, just like you were referring to with Bill Maher, Donald Trump is doing so much right now that's common sense. It's so common sense that oftentimes, like the thing with making English the official language of the United States, that's never been done before. People think to themselves, what? This wasn't the case before? He actually had to sign an executive order to make this the case? So many people see a lot of this as common sense. You have a tiny, tiny fringe piece of the population that are dudes who either think they're women or they say they think they're women so that they compete with women in sports or go in women's locker rooms. We should not be catering to that population, and we certainly should not be putting women's lives and mental stability and sanity at risk by shoving dudes into their facilities. And this, I hope that Democrats press in on this issue. I certainly hope that they keep tweeting through the ratio, a colloquialism I use for doubling down on anything bad, because they don't seem to get it. Bill Maher seems to be the only liberal in Hollywood who gets it. And I applaud him for it. I think he's terrible on 98% of other issues, but on this, I will give him an A+.
All right. I want to talk about Elon Musk, but actually you reminded me of something. So one of the reasons that Elon Musk came out so strongly in favor of Donald Trump was this common sense stuff. A lot of people don't know this, but one of his children was transed by the school system behind his back. He's busy running Tesla and trying to save the world through electric cars in his mind, SpaceX, all of that. They're trying to confuse his child. No, you're the opposite gender. It's okay. Indoctrination. Finally, they bring him in and they're like, if you don't let this child take hormone replacement and become the opposite gender, they are going to kill themselves. Yeah. And he was like, oh my gosh, like what is going on with my child? And so the school system, so all of that to say, he is now committed. He doesn't care how much it takes, how much money, how much effort it takes. He wants to kill the woke mind virus. That's what he calls it. Yeah. And take back control of genders. Are there gay people out there? Yes, absolutely. Are there a lot of trans people out there? Probably not as many. Should you be forcing that on children whose minds are still developing? Like, no, I absolutely disagree with that. So, okay, sticking with the Elon Musk, what are your thoughts? He's about ready to exit. I knew that this day would come. Some are saying he's abandoning Trump. This is the big breakup. I think he was already planning to leave, but now he's looking at SpaceX, Tesla, Boring, all of these other companies, and they need him. He literally has a fiduciary duty as a CEO
Right.
to go make sure that his stocks that are publicly traded are doing well. Those are purchased by government pensions, private pensions. He owes it to them. Your thoughts on the job that he's done at Doge, and this now going back to the private workforce?
Yeah. First of all, whoever the teachers or student counselors or whoever they were who transed his kid, I gotta think they are the stupidest people on the planet. You're gonna trans Elon Musk's kid? Like, I'm not saying you should do it at all, but do it to Joe Schmo, someone who doesn't have the might of being the richest person in the world, one of the most famous people in the world, who, if you do this to their kid, they're gonna get ticked off and they're gonna tell the world about it. And then they're gonna back Donald Trump and throw as much money at him as legally allowable. So I guess kudos for their stupidity. I think that he has done a bang up job. I think that he has exposed more than many of us thought possible. And you're right. He has a fiduciary responsibility to take care of the companies that he fosters, because there are other people who have major financial stakes in those. I do think that there will be a crew left after he leaves who, they've learned the scaffolding, they've learned the process, they have learned all together with Elon Musk at the helm how to pick through all of these government agencies and programs and resources and find the waste, fraud, and abuse. It's great to have Elon Musk there, but there is a time at which he does have to depart. And this is a conversation that he and Donald Trump, I know, have been having for a long time. When is the time to go? And I would imagine on good authority, I'll say, that there was a concern about the appearance that he was leaving because of what was happening to Tesla owners and Tesla vehicles. And there was a concern that it would be some sign of acquiescing to them. That certainly is not the case. It rests solely on the financial interest of the companies that he owns. And if you are a Cybertruck driver who was driving in Burbank, California 2 days ago, and you have a no Elon bumper sticker on your Cybertruck and someone was yelling coward at you, that was me. I'm not apologizing for it at all. It's unfortunate what is happening to Tesla owners, but I do think that Elon has to go. And I think he's doing a better job than Congress. I'll put it that way, because for every single cent that he proposes to save the American people, and I do believe that Marjorie Taylor Greene, as chairwoman of the Doge subcommittee, I do believe that she is taking every one of these recommendations to heart and presenting them to her committee. They have another subcommittee hearing the end of this month. But Congress has to act faster on this stuff. If you want the American people to feel the benefits of cutting spending, which is the best way to fuel the economy, bring down inflation, then that is how you do it. But it has to be done faster than it's being done. And you've got this big, beautiful bill that can have a major impact on that. So I would say Elon Musk is doing a great job. Congress has to do a better job.
I 100% agree with that. I know down in the comments, my audience is probably going to say the same thing. Like, yes, come on, Congress, pull your heads out of the sand,
Yep.
have some courage, and let's cut the bills and make America financially responsible again.
We all have to be, don't we? We have to pay our taxes.
Yes.
We have to cut out things that don't matter in our lives so that we can pay the bills of things that do.
Yeah. The only people that are allowed to get away with not paying their taxes are apparently the people at the IRS, that owe $50 million. I covered that. I covered that a couple of days ago on my show. I was like, are you kidding me? The very people, putting liens on me or threatening me or garnishing a check if I don't make that tax payment, they didn't pay their taxes. Oh my gosh.
It's unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
It really is like it's a parody of the US government that is so incredibly prevalent within the walls of the IRS. It doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me that the worst offenders of the agency that is supposed to regulate these offenses of the American people are within that agency. That doesn't surprise me at all. I guess it kind of surprises me that it's coming out, but I certainly hope that I mean, now we know that they're likely going to be audited every year, and they should be. And if they don't pay their taxes, they should be fired.
Yeah. It's also somewhat ironic that the most pro-tax, pro-IRS president of my lifetime, Joe Biden, had a son that
Skipping
skipped
out.
paying $1.5 million to
Yeah.
Hunter and then had an auto pen forgiveness for 14 years.
Yeah.
And then what? He just doesn't have to pay the IRS because daddy wrote him a blank pardon? Come
Yeah.
on.
And this actually all kind of comes full circle to what we were first talking about with respect to public speaking and Joe Biden in that speech he gave last week. So he reportedly was looking for $400,000. That's what Barack Obama was asking when he left office for speeches. He could only command $300,000, and I highly doubt after that display last week that he can even demand that. But Hunter Biden, you got to think that he is hoping that there is some passage of money from his father to himself, because the money from CEFC and Burisma and all of their international enterprises has dried up. They no longer have the clout. They are not able to benefit from elite capture. Hunter Biden no longer has Morris, his sugar daddy attorney, who was smoking a bong on his balcony in Malibu. He doesn't have that. He's not able to sell his art for $250,000 a pop. So he does still have these tax bills. And I think it ultimately comes down to the temerity and the audacity of public officials, people like Letitia James, who think that they can get away with these things just because of who they are. They think that they have enough buddies who will look the other way or influence something to their benefit. And Hunter Biden is no different, and neither is his father, or frankly, Sarah or James or anyone else who has the last name Biden.
Yeah. Wow. All right. You brought up Letitia James. That was actually my last question I wanted to bring up. Do you think Pam Bondi is going to take her criminal referral serious? Are we going to have somebody dig in, go through her finances like they did Donald Trump, her real estate like they did Donald Trump? The fact that she says her primary residence is in Virginia, but she's actually in New York being the attorney general. What are your thoughts on Letitia James and Pam Bondi actually pursuing this?
Yeah, well, look, Letitia James would not be the first politician to be accused of carpetbagging, but when it comes to mortgage fraud, that is a serious offense. I will just say that the sentiment that I have gathered regarding the confidence of AG Bondi, the confidence level is pretty low. People are still very miffed about the whole muddled confusion around the Epstein files, this binder that they gave to people that contained documents that were basically already out there, and then saying we're going to put these documents out. A lot of people have lost faith in Pam Bondi. So I don't know what she is going to do with it, but I would recommend that she does do something with it, because that could be a way to kind of make amends with the American people, because Letitia James is one of those folks who, beyond reason, beyond the borders of her responsibility, went after Donald Trump. And so many people see that. We know this, that there are so many New Yorkers who saw what she was doing to Donald Trump, and it freaked them the you-know-what out. And they ultimately ended up leaving. People like Kevin, O'Leary, saying, I don't want my businesses in New York when this type of thing is happening. So for Pam Bondi, I think that this would be a good way for her to pick up the fumble and maybe run a little bit closer towards the goal line. I don't know if this would make up for a number of fumbles. There's kind of a running joke around the media that she's part-time attorney general, full-time Fox News contributor. Yes. And that's not to cast aspersions at Fox News or her, but it seems like she's doing a whole lot of TV appearances and talking about her job. There used to be a quote, I think it was in the 80s or 90s, don't talk about it, be about it. She needs to be about it. She's talking about it a whole lot. She needs to be about it.
Yes. Ooh, I love that. Yeah, she's like becoming Lucy from Charlie Brown, where she's always setting up the football and then pulling it just as the American people might get some justice on something. But I mean, I did an interview with the investigative journalist, Joel, that has been digging in, went and knocked on the door. Hey, does Letitia James live here? No, we're renters. Like, there's so much
Yeah.
evidence stacked
Yeah.
against her.
Yeah. It's a slam dunk. I
Loans
mean,
for,
for a prosecutor and someone like attorney general, when you have so much admissible evidence, it is a slam dunk for her. So,
yeah. I, I don't know why. Maybe the Attorney General of Virginia should actually be the one with courage if Pam Bondi is not going to, because under the rules of New York, if you don't live in New York, you can't be the AG of New York. So
yeah.
I don't know. We'll see what ends up coming out of that. But like you
I mean,
said,
mortgage fraud, I think that could be translated to a state level case. I think that would be available to them. So,
yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I know how busy you are. We spent many, many months trying to get our calendars synced up, and I appreciate you saying yes to the
absolutely.
invitation.
Thanks so much for having me.
Amanda, I'm going to put some links down below, but where is the best place that I can push my audience so that they can follow you and learn more?
Sure. You can find me pretty much all across social media. On X, I am Amanda Head, just at Amanda Head. We also have an X page for the podcast. It's at Furthermore Pod, but you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, all those places. Just search for Amanda Head. I'm pretty ubiquitous.
Okay, great. I will do that. Thank you so much for coming.